Welcome to a brief introduction of KinGAP, the Kinship Guardianship Assistance Program, part of the Kinship Navigator video education series. In this video, we'll be discussing what KinGAP is, who's eligible for KinGAP, and what a guardian's rights and responsibilities are. But first, let's talk about who kinship caregivers are. Kinship caregivers are grandparents, aunts and uncles, other relatives, and family friends who are raising children in their homes in the absence of a parent. Kinship caregivers may have a variety of custodial arrangements, including having a court order or not having a court order. They might be foster parents or other options. For information on the custodial arrangements of kinship caregivers, check out our Legal Options for Kinship Caregivers video on our website. And for more information about kinship care in general, check out our Kinship 101 video on our website under Online Education. So what is KinGAP? KinGAP is an acronym. Kin standing for kinship, the G standing for guardianship, A is for assistance, and P is for program. KinGAP is a permanency option for children who are in foster care with a relative or fictive kin. A child must first be removed by a child welfare agency and subsequently placed with a kinship caregiver who is then made that child's foster parent. Non-kinship foster parents are not eligible for KinGAP. Only children who are in foster care with a kinship caregiver are eligible for KinGAP. That means that caregivers who have custody or no court order are not eligible for KinGAP. KinGAP is an alternative to adoption for exiting foster care. So caregivers become legal guardians instead of adoptive parents. First, a return to parent must be ruled out, and adoption must be ruled out as a permanency option before applying for KinGAP. We'll cover more about the eligibility rules for KinGAP in a later slide. KinGAP does not require a termination of parental rights. KinGAP is guardianship with a subsidy. So guardianship is not unique to foster care. A caregiver can obtain an order of guardianship without child welfare involvement, but that arrangement would not be eligible for KinGAP subsidy. KinGAP is guardianship with a subsidy, meaning that the county will continue to support the placement even though the foster care case is now closed. KinGAP is considered permanency. When KinGAP has been approved and letters of guardianship have been awarded by the courts, the foster care case is closed. As mentioned in an earlier slide, a termination of parental rights is not necessary in KinGAP. Parents can retain their rights. What that usually means is that parents can usually visit the child and may petition the court to regain custody. A judge can choose to return the children to their parents if a parent can show substantial change in circumstances and the judge determines it's in the child's best interest. Guardians are not prevented from pursuing adoption in the future, but they will lose a KinGAP subsidy. So if you're considering adoption, do so while you're still a foster parent. KinGAP eligibility and requirements. How do children become eligible for KinGAP? The first requirement of KinGAP is that the child and the relative are related by blood, marriage, or adoption, the caregiver is the appointed guardian of a half-sibling, or the person has a positive relationship with the child. We call those folks fictive kin. The child has been in foster care and placed with a relative for at least 6 consecutive months, and that relative has to have been a fully certified or approved foster parent during those 6 months. Sometimes children are with caregivers before they become a fully certified foster parent. That does not count towards the 6 months. The agency has ruled out reunification and adoption. Those are 2 permanency goals, returning to the parent's home and adoption, that are not possible for the child before KinGAP can be considered. The agency has decided it's in the child's best interest for the relative to be the child's guardian. The child and the relative guardian have a strong attachment, and the relative has to demonstrate a strong commitment to permanently care for the child. In addition to these requirements, 2 other requirements include the child over the age of 14 must be consulted, and over the age of 18 has to consent to a KinGAP placement. Additionally, the fact-finding and first permanency hearing must be completed before a KinGAP application can be submitted. What are the duties of a guardian? What rights, powers, and responsibilities does a guardian have? The first duty of a guardian is protection of the child, meeting that child's personal needs, which include food, clothing, and shelter. A guardian is responsible for the educational decisions and social needs of a child. This includes consent for activities that require permissions of a parent or guardian. The guardian is responsible for making medical decisions on behalf of the child and obtaining other professional care for the child. They're also responsible for deciding where the child lives, and that could be outside New York, and can consent to out-of-state and international travel. And a guardian may also request child support from the birth parent on behalf of the child, in addition to their KinGAP subsidy. Additional information on applying for KinGAP and processing an application can be found on the Office of Children and Family Services website at ocfs.ny.gov/kinship. The Kinship Navigator has multiple ways to interact with you, the user. You can contact us by phone, fax, online chat, or email. A Kinship Navigator is available to assist both professionals and kinship caregivers Monday through Friday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You can reach us on our helpline at 877-454-6463 or by fax at 585-456-1676. You can also chat with the Kinship Navigator using our website at nysnavigator.org or send us an email at navigator@nysnavigator.org. View our other Kinship Navigator videos on our online education page at nysnavigator.org.